我们继续来跟读冯教授的视频。今天的主题是 How to reverse fatty liver disease naturally， 如何采用自然的方式来逆转脂肪肝。
Today I'm going to
talk about fatty liver. What it is, how we get it, and what new research is telling us about how we can reverse it naturally without any drugs, just a change in our diet.
This is a
picture of what a fatty liver looks like. It's pretty much what it sounds like.
Too much
fat in the liver.
What's wrong with
that? Well,
fat,
which is
the
molecule called triglycerides,
should be stored
in fat cells, which are called adipocytes.
If you
store fat in fat cells, it doesn't cause a lot of problems. But if you store fat in the liver where it's not supposed to be stored, then you're gonna get a lot of problems.
So
when you look at non-alcoholic fatty liver disease,
and the first
stage is what you can see is that the cells are swollen up with all this extra fat.
As
it progresses to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis or NASH, you start to develop a lot of inflammation, and this inflammation in the liver can actually destroy the liver and completely wipe it out, leading to destruction, which is called cirrhosis. And at that point, you might even need a liver transplant. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is becoming a bigger and bigger problem
in North
America and now all of the world.
In fact,
it was barely known in 1980 when the first cases were described. From a virtually unknown disease in 1980, it's become an epidemic. Up to 25% of people in the United States are thought to have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
And it's
not just a problem with the fat. In fact, it's causing a lot of liver problems overall.
This is data
from the United Kingdom, which shows that hospitalizations for fatty liver disease have increased almost tenfold from 1998 to 2010 as a cause of liver transplantation. It's doubled from 2007 to 2013. Normally,
the
liver can produce some fat, and it does take in fat from other sources such as the plasma, which is the bloodstream. The fatty acids. The evening meal contains the fatty acids as well,
and it will go
into the liver, and the liver will export it out. The difference between normal livers and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is that there is a massive increase in the amount of fat that is produced by this process called de novo lipogenesis. This is the creation of new fat. But what is it created from? It's not from old fat. It's from sugar.
When we talk
about sugars, there's two main molecules we are talking about. Glucose,
which is the
main sugar that you find in starches, like bread, flour, rice, potatoes.
Those
are long chains of glucose.
The
other simple sugar is fructose, and that's what's found in high fructose corn syrup and also table sugar or sucrose. That is one molecule of glucose and one molecule of fructose.
Fructose
Fructose
is
is
a
a
very
very important
important
molecule
molecule
for
for
de
de
novo
novo
lipogenesis
lipogenesis
because the
because the
fructose
fructose
cannot be
cannot be
metabolized by any
metabolized
cell
by
other
any
than the
cell
liver.
other than the liver.
Whereas most of the cells of your body,
Whereas
that is
most
your
of the
heart,
cells
your
of your body,
muscles, your
that is your
kidneys,
heart,
your
your muscles,
liver 啊，这个中断一下，这边它是口误，这个要 liver 应该去掉，因为它是说到这个可以消化果糖，也就是 fructose 的器官。实际上，果糖只能够通过肝脏来消化，就上面这句话右上角的 fructose is metabolized only in the liver，就是说果糖啊 fructose 只能够在肝脏里面来消化，或者说来代谢。All cells can use glucose 就是糖，就是葡萄糖，所有的细胞呢都是可以去使用葡萄糖的，但是呢，唯有我们的肝脏可以消化或者代谢果糖。
use glucose for
Use glucose
energy.
for energy.
None of those
Can use the
fructose.
fructose.
So
All the
that you
fructose that you eat essentially goes straight into the liver. And from this diagram, you can see that it gets turned into triglycerides or new fat. And from there, it's supposed to be exported out. But if you are producing too much of this new fat, then it's gonna accumulate in the liver.
The
The other main
molecule
molecule we have to worry about is glucose. If you are eating a very high carbohydrate diet, then you are gonna take this glucose and you are gonna turn it into new triglycerides. This is a diagram of how it happens, and it seems very complicated, but essentially, you can see that you are taking the feedstock, which is glucose, putting it through this metabolic pathway in the liver, which is a hepatocyte, and out comes triglycerides, a new fat. We know how this process works in animals, for example, in the production of foie gras. Well, this is a very controversial food because of potential animal cruelty. It is a fatty liver of a goose, and it's made by putting a tube down and feeding these ducks large amounts of not fat but starches, corn mash in this case. They take all this corn, which is high in glucose, and the liver creates more fat. You get fat liver, which is food that we call foie gras.
And it works
And it works in humans too. In this study, what they did was they overfed humans carbohydrates, and from baseline, when they fed them a lot of glucose and fructose, they increased their body weight, but only by 2%. However, when they measured their liver fat, it went up by 27%. And when they measured how much de novo lipogenesis was happening, they found an identical 27%. When they took them off of their high starch diets, they lost all that liver fat. When you eat a lot of glucose, this is going to stimulate the production of the hormone insulin, which is a storage hormone. It tells our body to store some of this energy that's coming in. And one of the ways that our body does that is through the creation of a new fat. These studies show that there's a clear correlation between giving people insulin and how much fat is in their liver. The same effect is seen in overfeeding of fructose. Things like sugar or high fructose corn syrup. When they did this to humans, they found was that the amount of de novo lipogenesis that was being done in the liver increased the amount of new fat by 79%. The rate of de novo
lipogenesis
lipogenesis increased from baseline by 6 times.
So the
So
liver
the
is
liver
responding
is
to
responding
this
to
high
this
load of
high load of
fructose by
fructose
turning
by
it
turning it
into
into
fat in the
fat
liver.
in the liver.
Once we
Once we
understand how
understand
this
how
fat
this
is
fat is
created and
created
stored in the
and stored
liver,
in the liver,
that leads us
that leads us
naturally to
naturally
how we're
to
going to
how we
treat
are
it.
gonna treat it.
Since
Since
fatty
fatty
liver is
liver
caused by
is
too
caused
much
by too
sugar,
much
both
sugar,
glucose
both
and
glucose and
fructose,
fructose,
the logical
the logical
solution is
solution is
simply to
simply
cut
to
them
cut
down.
them down.
And that's what
And that's
recent
what
research has
recent
shown
research
us
has
to
shown
be
us to be
highly
highly
effective
effective
in the
in the
reversal of
reversal
fatty liver
of fatty
disease.
liver disease.
This study,
This
published in
study, published in
2019,
2019,
looked at
looked
teenage
at
boys
teenage
who had
boys who
developed
had
fatty
developed
liver.
fatty liver.
And what they
And what
did
they
was they
did was they
randomized them
randomized
to
them
a
to
normal
a normal
diet
diet
versus a
versus a
very
very
low sugar
low
diet,
sugar diet,
less than
less than
3% of
3%
calories,
of calories
compared to a
compared
normal
to a
diet,
normal diet,
which was less
which
than
was less than
10% of
10% of
calories.
calories.
What were the
What
results?
were the results?
This is a
This is
graph
a
of what
graph
happened
of what
on the
happened
low
on
sugar
the
diet.
low sugar diet.
The dotted
The
line
dotted
is the
line is
amount of
the
fat
amount
in
of
the
fat
liver
in the liver
prior to the
prior to
diet,
the
and the
diet,
circle
and the
is
circle
how much
is how
liver
much
fat
liver
there was
fat there
after
was
following
after
this low
following
sugar
this low
diet.
sugar
And
diet.
on
And on
average, the
average,
liver
the
fat
liver fat
decreased from
decreased from
25% to
25% to
17%. You
17%.
can see that
You can see
most
that
of the
most of
circles
the
drop
circles
below
drop
the
below
original
the
dotted
original
line.
dotted line
Compared to the
compared
usual
to the
diet,
usual
where there
diet
really
where
wasn't
there
much
really
change,
wasn't
and the
much
average
change,
liver
and the
fat
average liver
moved
fat
from
moved from
21% only
21%
to
only to
20%, or no
20%
change
or
at
no
all.
change at all.
This study
This
from
study from
2021
2021
randomized
randomized
people to two
people to
different
two
types of
different types
dietary
of
intervention.
dietary intervention.
Either a
Either
fasting
a
type diet,
fasting
which is a
type
5 to
diet,
2
which is a
diet,
5
or a
to
low
2 diet, or a
carbohydrate,
low
high fat
carbohydrate,
diet.
high fat
In the
diet. In
fasting
the
diet,
fasting diet, the
didn't change
diet
much,
didn't change
although on 2 of the
much, although
days
on two
they
of the
ate
days they
very
ate
few
very few
calories. The
calories.
low
The
carb
low
diet
carb diet
severely
severely
restricted the
restricted
amount
the
of
amount of
carbohydrates that they
carbohydrates
ate.
that they ate.
So what happened?
So what happened?
Both the
Both the
fasting and the
fasting
low
and
carb
the low
diets
carb diet
resulted in
resulted
better
in
weight
better weight
loss
loss
compared to the
compared to
usual
the usual
diet. But
diet.
more
But more
importantly, when they looked
importantly,
at the
when they
liver
look
fat,
at the
they
liver
could
fat, they
reduce the
could
amount of
reduce the
fat
amount
in
of
the
fat in the
liver by
liver
over
by over
50%,
50%,
both with
both with
fasting
fasting
and low
and low
carbohydrate
carbohydrate
diets.
diets.
This makes a lot
This
of
makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
If
If
fatty
fatty
liver is
liver
really
is
just
really
caused
just
by too
caused
much
by too much
sugar, that is
sugar,
too much
that is too
glucose
much
and too
glucose
much
and too much
fructose,
fructose,
then the
then
logical
the logical
intervention is
intervention
to simply
is to
cut
simply
them
cut
back.
them back
By
by
using
using
very low
very low
carbohydrate
carbohydrate
diets
diets
and/or
and or
fasting,
fasting.
we can
We can
reverse
reverse
fatty liver
fatty liver
disease, a
disease, a
blossoming
blossoming
epidemic,
epidemic,
and one that's
and one that's
contributing to
contributing
a
to
lot of
a
liver
lot of
failure. And
liver
we can
failure,
do it
and we can do
completely
it completely
naturally
naturally
and
and
completely
completely
free.
free.
We just
We
have to
just
take the
have to
knowledge
take
of
the
how it
knowledge of how
develops
it
and apply
develops
it
and
to our
apply it
lives.
to our
If you
lives.
want to
If
learn
you want to learn
more
more
about how to
about
use
how to use
intermittent
intermittent
fasting, you
fasting,
can check
you
out
can
the
check
other
out the other
videos
videos
in my
in my
playlist
playlist
somewhere here.
somewhere here.
Thanks for
Thanks
watching.
for watching.
If you learned
If you learned
something,
something,
maybe share it
maybe
with a
share it
friend.
with a
They
friend.
might learn
They might
something
learn
too.
something too.
And if you
And
enjoyed
if
this
you enjoyed
video,
this
make
video,
sure you
make
hit the
sure you
like
hit the like
button
button
somewhere down
somewhere
below.
down below.
I'll see you
I
next
see you
week.
next week. 好，结束了。